Welcome back to Common Ground and Inside Look at Suffolk County. I'm your host, Sheriff Steve Tompkins. Now, we're talking all things politics, and I'm here with good friends Michael McCormack and Bill Forry. And what I want to do, guys, real quickly is just touch on several of the other races underneath the gubernatorial race. Okay. Let's start with Lieutenant Governor. You've got four candidates, Steve Kerrigan, Mike Lake, Leland Chung, and...
James Arena DeRosa is the other Democrat. Yeah. Karen Polito is a Republican who's running, and she's the only Republican running for LG. She's essentially already ticketed up with Charlie Baker. So if you go to their website, you're going to see the two of them there together. They do have semi-separate campaign structures, but they're running as a ticket.
Is she a strong partner for him? Because I remember when the name was announced several months ago, there was some scuttlebutt about, is she the best one? Mm-hmm. Is she going to help or hurt that ticket?
Well, she lost, I believe she ran against Suzanne Bump for state auditor head-to-head, right? She performed well. I thought she was an effective candidate. I believe she's a BC person, by the way, so she got that going for her. Right. I can remember going to BC tailgates and seeing her having standouts, so she at least knows that she needs that demographic. Right. I actually think she'll be helpful, and I think it's a smart move to get somebody on board early and have a cohesive ticket. So yeah, she's going to be a factor among the Democrats. Mm-hmm. Sheriff, I think it tends to be a two-person race at this point. Mike Lake and Steve Kerrigan are the two names that we hear most. They're contenders. I think it's going to be a horse race between the two of them, and we'll see again at the convention which of the two have the strongest showing.
What do you think Leland Chung? I'll get you in a second, Mike. Sure. I'm sorry. What do you think Leland Chung jumps into this? Does he make a difference? Make any noise?
Yeah, I think actually Leland Chung is a very interesting name in this field. I think even people who are supporting him are aware. He's a young guy at this. He is a Cambridge City Councilor. He's really becoming now a larger name through this race, and that may be the purpose of it, is to kind of introduce himself out there. Mm-hmm. He's a promising young Democratic figure. In this particular field, it seems that Kerrigan and Lake, they got out early, and I think they're the names that we're hearing most.
And Mike really got out really early. Yeah. I'm sorry, did I cut you off, Mike?
No. And I don't mean to correct Bill, because he's much smarter at politics than I'll ever be, but Polito, I think, ran against Grossman for treasurer.
Sorry. Right.
No, that's all right. Yeah. But my memory was she had the ability to raise money.
Yeah.
And I think that's why she's on the ticket with Baker, is that she comes from Worcester County. She's shown the ability to raise money. I think Steve Grossman was the beneficiary. I think he ran a good campaign, but he was the beneficiary of a Deval Patrick house cleaning.
Okay. Yeah.
But Polito was, she has the ability to raise dough.
Have you seen her on the stump?
Yeah, she's pretty good, actually. Yeah, she's attractive and smart and glib and clever, and she
presents well. I mean, when you really drill down into the issues of importance, she's
for sure. And unlike the Republicans, half of them show up. The lieutenant governor candidates are mutants. I mean, this woman's pretty good, actually. And I think Baker and Polito, that team's going to be pretty good. I think they're going to be tough to beat. I really do.
Yeah.
And there's really no race for her. I mean, once she gets through September, she's a ticket. It's really about Charlie Baker at that point. Not to diminish her in any way, but people are, I think, in most cases, voting for the governor, and so she doesn't have any real opposition here in the primary.
You know what, guys? I have to step back just a quick second. In the last segment, we talked about the gubernatorial candidates, and what I did not touch on was the independent candidates, and I believe there are 3 of them out there.
Right.
Can independents really have any sway in that for that seat in the Commonwealth?
I don't think so. But there's a fellow running, Jeffrey McCormack.
It's a good name, actually.
It's a very good name. He spells it probably like the English as opposed to the Irish. But
like the seasoning. I think there's McCormack seasoning. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Right. He can't win, but what he can do is hurt Baker. If he can get up 10, 12, 13%, he hurts Baker, because that's Baker's vote. I mean, he's an investment banker, and those folks who every vote for Jeffrey McCormack is a vote Charlie Baker's counting on. So if I'm the Democrats, and there's a lot of very smart Democratic power brokers, they're going to work as hard for Jeffrey McCormack as they are for whomever is the Democratic nominee, just to get his vote up to hurt Baker.
And I believe he has personal wealth also, and has gone on record as saying that he would spend his money because he really wants to make some noise in this.
Well, that's even better for the Democrats then, if that's the case. I have to be honest, I don't know much about the independent field. I think, as Mike said, in general, it will have a negligible impact unless you have a deep-pocketed independent who would be willing to spend that kind of money on television. And it may not even take 10%. I mean, it may just take 3% to put a dent in a tight race there. So if that's the case, I think that they could probably use it.
And the best exemplar is Tim Cahill, who ran as a, I don't know what Tim, I forget what it was, 4 or 5%, but you know, there are some people who, and I think that I don't agree with them, say that he cost Charlie Baker the race. I just think Patrick was a better candidate, ran a better race. But you know, the more the more votes independents get, the fewer Republican votes that are available to Baker.
Okay, so then let me swing back, and I'll start with you, Mike, on the Attorney General's race. You have Warren Tolman, you have Maura Healey, who's actually presently in that office, well, the assistant to Martha. Hank Norton stepped down, and clearly one of my favorites would have been Peter Katusian, Sheriff of Middlesex, but I doubt that he's going to get in, primarily because he just lost to Catherine Clark in the congressional race. What's your thought on the AG's race?
I think Warren Tolman is the man to beat. He's run statewide. People know the name Tolman. It doesn't hurt that your brother's the head of the AFL-CIO. Maura Healey's a very competent assistant AG. I just don't see where she has the ability to raise the kind of money in a race where the focus really isn't going to be on AG. People are going to walk in, they're going to vote for governor, and that's the exciting race. But they're going to know the name Tolman. I know the name. I don't know where I know it from, but I think he's the person to beat.
So you know what, Bill? So that's interesting. One, the name recognition, and two, his brother's affiliation with one of the larger union trade the bodies. So I had a conversation with a couple of friends, and they were saying that if you listen to Maura Healey, she's pretty strong on the issues. You know, maybe a little bit stronger than Warren on the issues, but you flip the coin over, and he's stronger with his relationships throughout the Commonwealth. What do you think really rises to the top? Is it the relationships, or is it the really being able to speak smartly on the issues?
Well, this is one of those races, and again, there is a Republican running, John Miller, who announced last week. Frankly, this is one of the races which this will be a Democratic winner ultimately. So I think that the up-ticket race, the ticket-topping race here, the gubernatorial, will have an impact on this race potentially. If this becomes a discussion or a theme within this campaign about insiders, Democratic insiders, and their influence within the state being a negative thing from the Charlie Baker point of view, in speaking to independents, that could have an impact on and carry over into other races. Now, obviously, the primary season will be over one way or another. Maura Healey has a strong resume and is inside the Attorney General's office now. She understands the office, and she's she's also well-liked in the progressive community. But you're right, Warren Tolman's bona fides within the Democratic establishment politically has already reaped him big rewards. Full disclosure, my wife Linda is the co-chair of his campaign. Okay. So this is one that I'm not gonna pick either way. I'd rather not go down that road. Sure. But I do think that there is an argument here that this race could be competitive running up into the September primary.
Why would anybody want to be a Republican in this Commonwealth? I mean,
that's a good question.
Yeah.
You know, because there are many, many, many people in Massachusetts who are unenrolled, but they vote Republican. Not enough to beat Deval Patrick, but certainly enough to elect Bill Weld, Paul Cellucci, Jane Swift inherited the office. But I think the best example I can give was Paul Cellucci beating Scott Harshbarger. And that was a shock. I mean, Harshbarger was the clear Democratic favorite. And the votes that voted for Paul Cellucci were Republicans 13%. there is this group of folks who sit out there and vote Republican, and they view themselves as Reagan Democrats, a conservative Democrat. So you don't have to be a Republican. You can be unenrolled and vote Republican right down the line.
Even in the city of Boston, in that Harshbarger-Salucci race, there wasn't much excitement for Harshbarger. It does have to be a Democrat that will rise up and really appeal, especially in our communities, and really excite our base. And that is an issue all throughout these various races here. There isn't a great, and I apologize in advance, there isn't a great dynamic, kind of thunderstruck candidate that has emerged yet that has the potential to do what Deval Patrick did in '06, and then of course as an incumbent doing it again. We'll see. Maybe somebody will catch fire, as we said. But the entire field right now is still in simmer mode as they're working towards the convention. So there is, as Mike said, there is a strong unenrolled component to our electorate that they come out for these statewide races. So that's the variable.
And they're on social issues, pro-choice issues. They're very, very, very liberal. But they're also saying, well, don't raise my taxes.
Yeah.
I don't want to pay for school.
Right,
I don't want to pay
exactly.
for fixed roads. I mean, it's a little bizarro land.
So I want to go back to something you just said about the candidates that are out there now may not having that kind of same sway impact that Deval Patrick had. I want to ask you about the money that comes with that. And my understanding is at the same time during his campaigns, there was a lot more money out there for the candidates, or they raised more money than they are now. Is that because of the fact that you don't have this almost rock star quality in the candidates, and so therefore that translates into the funding not being the same, or is it because the electorate is just so campaign fatigued that they just may be out of money?
Well, probably a little bit of both. There's not an incumbent. Incumbents generally, people who give to campaigns give to incumbents, particularly Deval Patrick. I think.
But the first race, I don't think he wasn't. That was an open seat during his first race, wasn't it?
It was, and Tom Riley was the favorite, and
Tom Riley.
Tom just kind of collapsed, and Deval filled the void.
He did, and it was really kind of an insurgency. It was almost a precursor to what we saw in '08 with the president. And I think the president has said he modeled a lot of those tactics on the governor's first race. And the grassroots nature of fundraising, and he did get the small dollar amounts going early on and use the internet well. That was a template really for what we've seen. But you're right in saying that there has been, I think, fatigue for sure, and but there is an element of that. Well, we want to support somebody with that dollar who is viable, number one, but also has somebody that we really believe in. So that money's still, a lot of it's still on the sidelines, I think.
Well, for the most part, skip over the auditor's race. I believe Suzanne Bump is running uncontested on the Democratic side, although she does have a Republican challenger. But safe to say that she will probably take that one.
I think so.
Okay.
For sure.
Treasurer. So you've got Deb Goldberg, you've got Barry Feingold, and Tom Conroy. Let's start with you, Mike. What's your thoughts for treasurer?
Well, my sense is probably Deb Goldberg and Barry Feingold are probably in the inside track right now. Although Conroy, I've met him. I think he's very, very competent, very capable. It really depends on money. It's going to be a race that very few people are going to say, boy, there's an exciting race. So if Deb Goldberg can spend some, the old Stop and Shop money and spend some of her own money.
That's right, Stop and Shop.
It'll be interesting. Feingold is a dog for work. He's a hard worker. He's a hard campaigner. He'll raise money. I think that'll be a very interesting race.
So Barry Feingold is a sitting state senator, and will have relationships with his colleagues in the legislature, which will help him on field in this kind of race. I think that will be helpful in the primary. As you mentioned, Deb Goldberg, she's run before. She ran for lieutenant governor, I believe, in 2006. When Governor Patrick was running it. Tim Murray won that race, of course. But she's been down this road before, and she does know how to she does know how to navigate statewide. So that'll be an interesting race. I would give the edge to Feingold because of that that built-in sort of apparatus that can come with legislative help from his colleagues. So we'll see. But that's going to be one of those really down-ticket races that gets very little attention.
Talk down ticket, talk sheriff. That's down ticket, right? Please. Let's,
We don't want anybody running against you,
Thank you,
Sheriff.
sir. Nor do I. Thank you.
By acclamation,
There
we
you
want
go.
you elected.
Listen, so thank you, sir. Ed Markey. Now, he has to run again. He won the special.
That's right.
He's got to go again, and help me with the name, to say? Is he going again, do you know, against Ed?
I'm not sure that he's
Okay.
made an announcement on that, but
Okay.
he did run before, and he would be the favorite on the Republican side if he were to get in to take a crack at that seat. I frankly don't know that he'd do it. I think Senator Markey has a pretty strong position as an incumbent as a U.S. senator. I don't know that.
And the
that's
ability
a really-
to raise just bucket
He can
loads
raise money.
of money.
Yeah,
And to Sive, my memory was, I thought he ran against Tierney. Is that
I think you're, yes,
John
my
Tierney?
bad. Yeah,
And-
okay.
And
Yeah.
he came close but lost. But, I think Tierney has been sort of reclaimed. I think if he was vulnerable, it was 2 years ago when that whole issue about his wife and the brothers.
Although there's a young
and-
man out there, Seth Moulton, I believe his last
Okay.
name is, who's making a little noise going after Tierney. I don't know how
Yeah.
that comes out, but he is making a little noise.
It just strikes me if Tierney was going to lose, he would have lost 2 years ago. I think
Yeah,
he's,
that was his most vulnerable moment.
exactly. I
Clearly.
agree with you, Bill. I think he's raised money, and I don't see him losing to Cy or
What's
anyone else.
your
for that matter.
thoughts on Scott Brown moving to New Hampshire and possibly going after Gene Shaheen?
You always get me with the tough questions right out of the game, but that's all right. I like Scott, but you know what? If I'm a registered voter up in New Hampshire, I'm going to say, well, why should I vote for somebody from Massachusetts? And isn't this, someone who's moving up here because he lost a race down there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't pretend to know a whole lot about New Hampshire politics, but I think he'll absorb a lot of the money that might have gone might not have been spent on a race. But I think the Democrats, I think Shaheen will win.
Yeah.
What do you think?
It's puzzling to me, and I agree. I don't know much about New Hampshire politics either, but I do know that Southern New Hampshire has a lot of Massachusetts folks who've left our state for the Granite State.
Right.
Perhaps he's thinking he can use that as his base up there. But I would suspect that New Hampshire folks would also somewhat view him with suspicion. Why is somebody who was unseated in Massachusetts
Right.
be our choice when we have some homegrown talent?
Right.
I think it's the National Republican Party looking for an opportunity to strike a blow, and that they see him as a vehicle for that. And perhaps maybe somebody else's agenda is at work to get him out of the Iowa field or something. Who knows what's going on there? But
Right.
I personally find it puzzling that he's doing this at all.
So I've got about a minute and change left, and I'll start with you, Bill. Going down the road, 2016. One, does Hillary get in? Number one, and two, what are the Republicans? Who are they going to put up? I mean, I know hard to say, but just your guesstimation. Does she run? And
I do. I think she does.
Who rises up through the Republican
Well,
side?
I think Chris Christie is the big name, obviously, and he's had a tough run, and but his name is still on everyone's lips. And if he is able to weather that storm and continue to be be viewed as a moderate Republican who can somehow appeal to the
That was my
primary voter in
question.
the GOP side.
Can he? Right,
Well,
moderate.
I
Ooh.
mean, he did himself some damage towards the end of the president's reelection and being a reasonable person and saying reasonable things about him.
Right.
And clearly that hurt him with the right wing of the party. But he's also somebody that I think they recognize. They need somebody with some star power. They need somebody who can be a national figure outside of the lens of the primary season and be able to raise money. We'll see if he's able to restore himself. But on Hillary Clinton, I think if her health is good, and there's no reason to suspect it's not, I don't see why she wouldn't be a candidate. I think she will have the novelty factor of being the first woman potentially to be the president. And I think it's something that every both national parties look for at this stage is that we need somebody who can really, have the dynamism and the appeal. Now, perhaps it could be somebody else from the Democratic PAC who could surprise her. Elizabeth Warren's name is another. And again, I think instinctively, party leaders are looking for somebody who's going to catch fire that way. If Hillary Clinton doesn't run, I think there'll be a lot of pressure on Elizabeth Warren to look at it.
What do you think?
I think Hillary Clinton will most likely run. I think the Republicans, for once, they've actually sound like they're doing something clever and smart, and that they've pretty much rejected the Tea Party in a lot of these national races. They pretty much said, we're not going to worship at the altar of the Tea Party. All they do really is just cost us races. So McConnell is being smart, and they're not as Tea Party oriented as they've been. So to answer your question, I don't see any of these Republican candidates coming.
Not even someone like a Rand Paul, who's speaking more as a libertarian than a straight-ahead Tea Party.
The country isn't ready for Rand Paul.
Okay.
Period.
Right.
And if Romney hadn't tacked so far to the right and became this almost laughable Rush Limbaugh character at the end, I think he could have won.
So in 5 seconds or less, Romney does not come back? He doesn't try again?
I don't think so.
No.
No, all done?
I think
Okay.
it's done.
Hey, look, guys, we're out of time. It's been a blast. We got to have you back again as we get closer to the convention in June, which is really going to be, I talk about a Donnybrook, that's going to be fun, and then we'll see where it goes after that. But I want to thank you guys for coming on today. Really appreciate it.
Delighted to be here.
All right,
Thank you,
folks,
Sheriff.
we're out of time. We're out of here. We'll be back again next week. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and we're going to run it like 3 or 4 more times, so you'll definitely be able to catch it. We'll see you again next week. Until then, take care and peace.